3 prisoners escaped Alcatraz and may have actually made it out alive. In 1962, 3 inmates broke out of the most secure prison in America. They used fake heads to fool the guards, then climbed through vents and escaped into the night. The FBI said they drowned, but no bodies were ever found, and some believe they survived. She was close to finishing her flight. Then her plane vanished. Amelia Earhart was attempting to fly around the world. In 1937, she reached the final stretch over the Pacific Ocean. Then her radio transmissions became weak. She said she couldn't see land. Then contact was lost. No wreckage was ever confirmed. And her disappearance remains one of aviation's greatest mysteries.
This sounds impossible, but one man literally mailed himself to freedom. In 1849, a man named Henry Brown was enslaved in Virginia and desperate to escape. So he came up with a risky plan. He packed himself inside a small wooden crate and had it shipped hundreds of miles north. The journey lasted 27 hours by wagon, train, and steamboat. When the box finally arrived in Philadelphia and was opened, Henry Brown stood up, a free man. That's why history remembers him as Henry Box Brown.
This melted mass in Chernobyl could kill you in minutes. After the 1986 nuclear disaster, a strange substance formed beneath the reactor. It became known as the elephant's foot. It was so radioactive that standing near it could be fatal. Even taking a photo was dangerous. It still exists today, slowly cooling, but still deadly.
This sounds fake, but in 1518, people started dancing and couldn't stop. It began in Strasbourg, France, when one woman walked into the street and started dancing uncontrollably. At first, people thought she had gone mad, but within days, dozens of people joined her, then hundreds. Some danced for hours, others for days without rest. Many collapsed from exhaustion. Historians still debate what caused it, but it became known as the dancing plague of 1518.
A man hijacked a plane, took the money, and disappeared. In 1971, a man calling himself D.B. Cooper boarded a flight. He claimed he had a bomb. He demanded cash and parachutes. After receiving them, he jumped from the plane mid-flight, somewhere over the wilderness. He was never found, and no one knows if he survived.
This sounds fake, but one man survived 2 atomic bombs. In 1945, a Japanese engineer named Tsutomu Yamaguchi was visiting Hiroshima for work. On August 6th, the atomic bomb exploded less than 2 miles from where he stood. He survived the blast and returned home to recover in Nagasaki. But 3 days later, another atomic bomb fell on that city too. Tsutomu Yamaguchi survived both explosions. Sometimes real history is more unbelievable than fiction.
3 lighthouse keepers vanished without a trace. In 1900, a supply ship arrived at the Flannan Isles lighthouse. The light was out. Inside, everything was in place. Meals half-eaten, clocks stopped, but the men were gone. No signs of struggle. Just an empty lighthouse, surrounded by sea. 5 military planes vanished, and then the rescue plane vanished too. In 1945, Flight 19 left Florida on a training mission. Then the pilots got lost. Their compasses stopped working. Radio calls turned frantic. They couldn't find land. Then came silence. The planes were never found, and the aircraft sent to search for them disappeared as well. An army appeared where almost no soldiers were standing. During World War II, the U.S. created the Ghost Army. Its job was deception. Inflatable tanks, fake artillery, recorded battle sounds. From a distance, it looked real. But some enemy scouts claimed they saw soldiers in the fog, who disappeared when they got closer. He ignored the end of World War II for almost 30 years. In 1945, the war ended. But deep in the jungle, a Japanese soldier named Hiru Onoda refused to believe it. Leaflets told him to surrender. He thought they were enemy tricks, so he stayed hidden in the forest for years, avoiding capture, waiting for orders that never came. Their tent was cut open from the inside. 9 experienced hikers camped on a frozen mountain. That night, something sent them running into the snow. Barefoot, underdressed. Some were found with broken ribs. One had no tongue. There were no signs of a fight, no clear explanation. Whatever happened out there, they were desperate to escape it. This sounds fake, but 9 hikers died under impossible conditions. Their tent was found cut open from the inside. Some ran barefoot into the snow. Some had broken ribs. One had no tongue, and no one knows what happened that night. 6 hikers died on a mountain, and the only survivors said they started screaming. In 1993, a hiking group crossed Siberia's Kamar-Daban range. Then, without warning, one collapsed. Others began bleeding from their eyes and ears. Some tore off their clothes. Some ran into the freezing dark. Only one woman survived, and she never forgot the screams. German soldiers said the only warning was a whisper in the dark. During World War II, Soviet pilots flew old wooden planes at night. Right before attacking, they cut their engines. The planes glided silently through the sky. Then, the bombs dropped. By the time soldiers looked up, it was too late. That whispering sound in the wind became their nickname, the Night Witches. A town accused its own people of witchcraft, and it spiraled out of control. In 1692, strange behavior spread through Salem. People claimed they were cursed. Neighbors accused neighbors. Fear took over. Trials began, and innocent people were executed. By the time it ended, the damage couldn't be undone. This sounds fake, but people claim strange things happen at Skinwalker Ranch. Animals appear mutilated. Lights move in the sky. Creatures are seen in the fields, and witnesses say something there is watching them. 5 children disappeared in a house fire, but no bodies were found. In 1945, a home burned to the ground. The parents escaped. 5 children did not, but investigators found no remains. Years later, strange sightings were reported, and one photo arrived with a message no one could explain. A distress call said, "All officers are dead." In 1947, a ship sent a chilling message. The crew was found lifeless, eyes open, frozen in fear. Moments later, the ship exploded. No official records confirm it, but the story has never gone away. They became so desperate, history says they may have eaten the dead. During the winter of 1609, Jamestown collapsed into starvation. Food ran out, the cold set in. People ate rats, leather, anything they could find. Then bodies began turning up with signs of butchering. The season became known as starving time, and the truth was darker than anyone wanted to admit. A submarine's final message ended in the middle of a sentence. In 1968, the USS Scorpion was returning from patrol. Then the radio went silent. Months later, search teams found the wreck nearly 2 miles underwater, but no one agrees on what happened. Mechanical failure, an explosion, or something inside the sub went wrong, faster than anyone could stop it. A family vanished in one of the hottest places on Earth. In 1996, a German family drove into Death Valley and disappeared. Their van was later found abandoned, flat tires, no fuel. Where they went. For years, the desert kept it secret. Then remains were found far from the road, in a place almost no one would ever walk on purpose. One morning, people woke up to footprints in the snow. In 1855, strange hoof-like tracks appeared across the English countryside. They crossed rooftops, walls, frozen rivers, and miles of open land. No one knew what made them. Some said it was an animal. Others said something far worse. The name stuck. The Devil's Footprints. 2 children appeared in a village, and their skin was green. In medieval England, villagers found a boy and girl near the pits of Woolpit. They spoke a language no one understood. They refused normal food, and they claimed they came from a land with no sun. The boy died. The girl survived, but no one ever explained where they really came from. Someone may have lived in the house. After the murders, in 1922, a family was killed on a remote farm. Before it happened, they reported footsteps in the attic. A key went missing. After the murders, neighbors noticed smoke still rising from the chimney. The animals had been fed, which means someone stayed there for days. She traveled across Europe using fake names, then vanished. In 1970, a woman was found dead in a remote valley in Norway. Police discovered wigs, suitcases hidden at a train station, and labels cut from her clothes. She had no identity, no records. More than 50 years later, no one knows who she was. 2 men were found dead, wearing metal masks over their eyes. In 1966, their bodies were discovered on a hill in Brazil. They were dressed in suits, with raincoats nearby. There were no signs of violence, a notebook with strange instructions, and no clear cause of death. To this day, no one knows what they were doing there. A ship was found drifting at sea with no crew on board. In 1872, the Mary Celeste was discovered in the Atlantic Ocean. The cargo was untouched. Food was still on the table. There were no signs of a struggle, but the entire crew had vanished. The lifeboat was missing, and no one has ever explained where they went. A masked man hijacked live TV, and no one was ever caught. In 1987, 2 stations were suddenly interrupted. A strange figure appeared on screen, laughing, mocking, speaking nonsense. Then the signal cut out. It lasted less than 2 minutes, but no one ever figured out who did it. A well-dressed man was found dead on a beach, and no one knew who he was. In 1948, his body was discovered on Somerton Beach in Australia. He had no ID, no wallet, and every label had been cut from his clothes. Then police found a tiny scrap of paper hidden in his pocket. It read, "Tamam Shud," which means ended. A single phone number may have been the only clue. After the Somerton man was found, police searched for answers. Then they found a book linked to the case. Inside was a hidden code and a phone number. The woman connected to that number denied knowing him, but witnesses said she looked terrified, and the meaning of the code is still unknown. Something exploded over Siberia and flattened a forest. In 1908, a massive blast tore through the sky above Tunguska. The shockwave knocked people off their feet. Windows shattered hundreds of miles away, but there was no crater, no clear impact site, just millions of trees blown outward like matchsticks, and no one has ever fully agreed on what exploded. A family was murdered in their sleep, and the killer may have stayed in the house. In 1912, 8 people were found dead inside a home in Villisca, Iowa. They were all attacked at night. The doors were locked, the curtains were drawn, and after the murders, someone covered the mirrors. Some investigators believed the killer remained inside the house, long after everyone was dead. A signal from space appeared once and was never heard again. In 1977, a radio telescope picked up a powerful burst from deep space. It lasted 72 seconds. It didn't match normal cosmic noise. One astronomer circled the data and wrote one word beside it: "Wow." Scientists searched for the signal again, but it never came back, and no one knows what sent it. Their car was found in the mountains, but they had no reason to be there. 5 men disappeared after a basketball game. Days later, their car was discovered on a remote mountain road. There was gas in the tank, no damage. Then one of them was found inside a forest trailer. There was food, plenty of it, but he starved anyway. The others were never fully explained. In 1915, hundreds of soldiers walked into a fog bank and never came out. During the Gallipoli campaign, British troops advanced toward a hill. Witnesses said a strange cloud dropped low over the battlefield. The soldiers marched straight into it. Then the fog slowly lifted. The hill was empty. No bodies, no survivors, and that battalion was never seen again. She survived the Titanic, then another shipwreck, then another disaster at sea. Violet Jessup worked as a stewardess on ocean liners. In 1911, she was on the Olympic when it collided with another ship. She survived. In 1912, she was on the Titanic. She survived that too. Then, in 1916, she was on the Britannic when it sank. She survived again. 3 disasters. 1 survivor.
This sounds fake. But one soldier kept fighting a war for almost 30 years. In 1945, World War II ended, but a Japanese soldier named Hiru Onoda was hiding in the jungle in the Philippines. He believed the war was still happening. Leaflets were dropped telling him the war was over. He thought they were enemy tricks, so he kept fighting until 1974, almost 30 years after the war had already ended.
This sounds fake, but ships and planes have vanished here for decades. The Bermuda Triangle sits between Florida, Bermuda, and Puerto Rico. Pilots reported strange compass failures. Ships disappeared without distress calls. Some planes simply vanished from radar. No wreckage was ever found, and the mystery remains unsolved. This sounds fake, but there was once a year without summer. In 1816, temperatures suddenly dropped around the world. Snow fell in June. Crops froze. Food shortages spread everywhere. The strange weather was later linked to a massive volcanic eruption, but at the time no one understood why summer never came.
This sounds fake, but a city was once flooded with molasses. In 1919, a giant storage tank in Boston suddenly exploded. Inside it were more than 2 million gallons of molasses. A thick wave rushed through the streets at 35 miles per hour. Buildings collapsed. Horses and carts were swept away, and people became trapped in the sticky flood. It became known as the Great Molasses Flood.
This sounds fake, but there's an island nobody is allowed to visit. Island sits in the Indian Ocean. The tribe living there has had almost no contact with the outside world. Anyone who approaches is met with arrows. Even helicopters stay far away. And the government has banned travel there, because some places on Earth remain completely untouched. This sounds fake, but an entire colony once disappeared. In 1587, settlers arrived on Roanoke Island. When supplies ran low, their leader sailed back to England. 3 years later, he returned. But the colony was gone. No bodies, no battle, only one word carved into a tree: Croatoan.
This sounds fake, but a man once arrived at an airport from a country that doesn't exist. In 1954, a traveler landed in Tokyo. His passport said he was from a place called Taured, but no country by that name exists. Officials questioned him for hours. He insisted Taured had existed for centuries. They placed him in a hotel overnight. The next morning, he had vanished.
This sounds fake, but hikers say something in the woods can copy voices. You might hear someone calling your name, but when you look, no one is there, and the voice sounds almost right. Almost, but not human. They were kept awake for days, and then they started whispering into the vents. In a sealed chamber, test subjects were given gas to stop them from sleeping. At first they talked normally, then they grew quiet, then unstable. When researchers finally opened the door, one of the men looked at them and said, "We almost escaped." No one has ever forgotten that line. This sounds fake, but people claim there's a place called the back rooms. If you glitch out of reality, you end up there. Infinite yellow rooms, buzzing fluorescent lights, and endless empty hallways. But the worst part isn't getting lost. It's realizing something else is there with you. This sounds fake, but people claim strange children knock on doors late at night. They look normal at first, but something feels wrong. They ask to come inside. Then you notice their eyes, completely black. No white, no pupils, just darkness. And everyone who saw them says the same thing. They felt overwhelming fear. This sounds fake, but a family once received letters from someone called the Watcher. The letter said the house had been watched for generations. They knew the family's names. They knew where the children slept, and they warned them. The house wanted young blood. This sounds fake, but people claim this elevator ritual opens a door to another world. It's called the elevator game. The rules say you must press a specific sequence of floors. If you do it correctly, a woman may enter the elevator. You must not speak to her. If the ritual works, the elevator will stop at a floor that doesn't exist. Some people say they stepped out. Others say they never came back. This sounds fake, but a secret experiment once kept people awake for weeks. Scientists pumped gas into a sealed room. 5 test subjects stayed awake for days. At first, they talked normally. Then they stopped speaking. Then they started screaming. By the end, they begged never to sleep again.